Scientists should be ashamed of themselves on our flat Earth.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you may be. CC here, Chris.
Have I seen about how Q has been exposed? Does someone have a link? Does someone have a link to that? I'd love to look at it after this.
From New York, Westchester County. It's August 19th, 2020, the year of awakening, with signs from the sky and signs from below.
There's nothing funny about
of the complete
capitalism.
I can't believe we got through that video without ticking off my QAnon square. Yeah.
power that has taken over the general population throughout the entire world, not only here in New York. But it really is. See, New Yorkers are.
I don't see anything in regard to QAnon being exposed.
Well,
not down in Manhattan.
Achieve an unlocked dream crusher.
They listen. They're courteous. And when you take a species or a population that's courteous and actually care for others, because there's a couple things I just want to add in here. Yeah, you want to piss Google off? I mean, let's just go right at it. You want to piss them off? Why don't you bring up a few things? All right, hold on.
Hold on. Well, it's my birthday today. Woke up to news that a bunch of comrades have doxed Q. Pretty nice way to start the day. Here's Jim Watkins. He's a pedophile F-head who owns 8chan and lives in the Philippines raising pigs and probably doing pedophile stuff. He is also verifiably Q. Dig is a Unix tool, part of the bind daemon, which allows you to look up the details of a website, where it's hosted, for instance. Jim Watkins is such an idiot, he posted qmap.pub on the same server as 8chan. That's what those numbers mean, and then there's this, and this, and this. I don't know what any of that means. I believe this guy had been rumored to be QAnon. We've talked about it briefly before. But it's not going to change what QAnon people think. It just isn't. Like, seriously. QAnon people aren't going to believe that. They're too deep into the conspiracy. There's a Medium post further now, and it covers it some. Okay. I don't know. Anyway.
I'm going to put that thought on hold. Let's piss Google off. I got a couple things for you, Google. That's right. I'm talking to you. So get your executives out there and get them behind the computer and make sure you get my fucking video. Because we're rolling up to September.
Dude, you have 2.69 thousand subscribers. YouTube doesn't care about you. Stop trying to address them directly.
1/1. Yeah, that's September 11th. We all have a question. We all have a question in the Flat Earth community. Okay, what happened to Building 7?
The Ender 97 with 100 bits. Can we put white people ranting in cars on the bingo card? That would be a good one. Logarth with 10 bits. His wife must have kicked him out of the kitchen if he's filming in the car.
Can anybody explain to me what happened to Building 7?
Sure, he's talking about 9/11. Conspiracy people who, like, conspiracy people, who are 9/11 truthers are like, what happened to Building 7? Building 7 was a building that was part of the World Trade Center facility that wasn't, the Twin Towers, because the World Trade Center was more than just the literal Twin Towers. There were adjacent buildings that were also part of the complex. So Building 7 also was destroyed during 9/11. And a bunch of these idiots are like, why did Building 7 collapse? Planes didn't hit Building 7. Guys, I want you to think about this for 5 seconds. And think about why a building adjacent to the Twin Towers would collapse on 9/11. Could it be the 2 skyscrapers falling on it? No, it must be a conspiracy.
That it collapsed like a demolition, just like the Twin Towers did. So, oh, well, it didn't happen? Oh, no, it did. I can tell you right now it did. But there's no way a building could collapse like that without being set up for a demolition.
Why? Why do you think that?
Months in advance.
So you think that thousands of employees in these buildings didn't notice a further 1,000 or so maintenance workers planting explosive devices in the buildings during the workday in the weeks leading up to 9/11 as they were having to put them on structural beams all over? No.
That sucks, doesn't it? And people died. These satanic people that are out there that make...
Why is it always the Satanists? My goodness, people. Get a new target. Say, I know Satanists, right? I've been on a Satanist podcast. Like, Satanists, at least most of them, don't literally believe in Satan. They are not Satanists in the sense that they believe in Satan and worship the devil. Satanism is usually a group of people who come together and believe in it as sort of a religion, or at least a set of beliefs, where they believe in, like, caring about human beings and having the freedom to do what you want as long as you aren't hurting other people. It's very reasonable. There are also satanic groups that work against things like Ten Commandments stuff being put on, like, public property. And the way they do that is they put up they say, like, hey, legally speaking, if you're going to let Christians put something up, you got to let us put something up. And they'll often put, like, a Baphomet statue or something to make a point. Satanists who believe in Satan and worship Satan. I'm not going to say none exist because there are like 8 billion people on this planet and there are plenty of crazy people out there. I mean, there are flat earthers. So I'm sure there are some people out there who believe in Satan and worship Satan. But here's the thing. Wouldn't matter if they did. You know why? Because Satan doesn't exist.
This happened. That run this world. They're so sick in the head. It's unbelievable. It really is. Unfucking believable.
I agree. I don't believe it.
Why they would do something like that. Let's piss them off again. Sandy Hook. Ooh, I love this one.
Oh, no! Oh, this one's gonna be bad.
The father that was laughing hysterically. Not hysterically, but you know what I'm talking about. Prior to the interview that he had on national TV. And when I say national TV, that's not what it should be.
Hey, if you want to report this video, here's a link. Probably report it. I'll report it when we're done.
Because originally YouTube was us getting together and showing other people how we feel. But that's been changed. That's been now monetized. Why? Don't know.
There's nothing funny
Monetized. Do you mean monitored or do you mean monetized? Porcelain giant with a bit. Pretty sure the reason the buildings collapsed that way was because of how they were constructed with an external skin of anodized aluminum pre-cut into large panels. I have no idea. Maybe. Not an engineer, not a structural engineer.
Because we're telling the... Well, I do know. Because we're telling the truth.
No, you're not.
And as I sit here and I watch 99% of the population walking around with a fucking mask, while I'm sitting here with a plate that says NASA Live.
Isn't that what your dad did to your box? That only makes sense if you watch the D&D game we play.
and not one single person has come up to me. No, well, yeah, let me retract that. One person did come up to me.
What would you report this under? At the Sandy Hook part, I would report it under, like, oh gosh, I forget what the report settings are. Hold on, give me a second. Report. Probably hateful or abusive content. And then probably abusing vulnerable individuals, and then under what they're actually doing, be like spreading Sandy Hook conspiracy theories and claiming that the victims' parents are crisis actors or something along the lines of that.
Okay. Ever since I have had this plate. Now,
because that stuff got, like, Alex Jones booted off YouTube, so YouTube does, like, take a stand on that stuff.
Now this population is just lost.
Yes, me, sitting in my car, I'm going to save the world. The delusions of grandeur that are present in almost every conspiracy theorist I cover. It's maddening how these people... I don't know if it's because of how the American movie industry and how, like, movies in general have painted us all and prepped us all to think that we're, like, the heroes of our own story and we're all the chosen one, just waiting to, like, for our letter from Hogwarts to come in, or for, you know, R2-D2 to come and bring us our message to save the princess. I don't know. But, like, so many people have these delusions of, like, I am the savior and I must spread the truth to the world. Gonna take the red pill and free people from the Matrix, you know? It's just the weirdest delusion.
It's just so fucking trained. Maybe I'm in the wrong area, you know? Upstate is where...
The monitor secretly runs YouTube, confirmed. Well, the tool he was using to monitor people was called the algorithm, so that does track.
I need to be.
Again, that's a D&D stream reference.
A highly populated area, like in the area that I live in right now, is made up of 95% trained, 5% awake.
Yes. This man is in the 95th percentile of intelligence. Can't you tell? He might be in the 95th percentile in terms of hair, though. His hair looks like silky smooth.
There's nothing funny about
and awake in what they
Who monitors the monitor?
are. When I mean awake, I mean, I'm just saying they're awake. Maybe not to flat Earth, but maybe just awake.
No, he said 95 and 5.
That this is all a lie in terms of the virus. Maybe they've awoken about 9/11 Sandy Hook. Maybe they've woken about the moon landing, perhaps. I don't know. But I mean, if one...
Do I think Jake called it that on purpose? Jake didn't come up with that, I did. All the backstory stuff for the professor, the monitor, the algorithm, Tranquis, all that's me. I made that stuff up.
To the moon landing back in 1969 and thinks that's fake. Well, wouldn't you investigate...
This, I should say, the specifics Jake wrote. Like, when we went into that room and the algorithm looked and behaved that way, that's him. But, like, the well, basically, when we started the D&D game, Jake had us, like, come and explain to him, like, our characters, their backstory, like, the people in their lives, stuff like that. And that stuff that I made up for the professor. And I'm expanding upon in the other game, the Alive game that we're playing. So, like, all the stuff that's, like, relevant to the canon of Tranquis, a lot of that's me. The specifics of... Jake's done an amazing job, and it's been so cool watching him, like, flesh some stuff out, because he's a better DM than me. So it's really cool hearing him talk about Tranquis and stuff in that D&D stream. Dr. Gamble with 50 bits. He's the only one awake. You might say he's the only one woke. I'll see myself out.
More into it, you know, and why they would fake something like that. Because if the moon actually really existed,
Oh no, he thinks the moon's fake.
As they said, we should be able to get out there.
We've been to the moon. We have been to the moon. We choose to go to the moon and do the other things not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
We have enough intelligence here, right? And why would they fake the moon? Well, the reason why they faked the moon landing is because it doesn't fucking exist.
The moon exists. I can't believe I have to say this. The moon exists. Ross Little Jr., quote, Louisiana is a pro-life state where we love both our mother and child, but where Joe Biden is hiding in the dark waiting to take the lives of our unborn babies. Ugh, these people are ridiculous. Where did it go? There we go. Daddy Sume with 50 bits. Night, Hannah. Thanks for the stream. I needed it after today. It's been a really bad day, and you always make it better. You're valid and loved. Chad is valid and loved. Good night, all. Thanks, Daddy Sume. Thanks for coming to the stream. See you next time.
That's right. It's not a tangible object. You can't land on something that doesn't exist.
Okay. At the foot of the ladder, the lamb foot beds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches, although the surface appears to be very, very fine-grained as you get close to it. It's almost like a powder. Ground mass is very fine. And then a long one.
We've been to the moon. Of course, they're going to be like, that's fake. No, it's not. It's not fake. Well, thank you for saying I'm a good DM. Let me clarify. I think Jake's strength as a DM is describing locations, bringing, like, thematic and narrative weight to the scenes. I think I'm good at character improv. I can come up with a silly character and be that character and have them interact with me. I'm fine with that, but I'm terrible at describing locations and sort of setting the scene. So that's something I need to work on, but that's a strength of his.
Because we don't live on a planet. We live on a flat plane.
Could you just jump into the D&D stream, or should you start from the beginning? I'd say start from the beginning, because there's a lot... I mean, you could try and start now, but a lot of it won't make sense, right?
People ask me about...
Even then, when we started the stream, we were already a little bit into the campaign, but I think we give some backstory, and you get it as we go forward, you know?
My daughter. What am I telling her? What I'm telling her is to go through the system, to go through this indoctrination. And that's what all of this is about. Indoctrination.
Are your campaigns convoluted? I mean, compared to what? A lot of stuff happens, and they're pretty complex, but I don't think it's that. At the end of the day, it's a basic save the universe story. There's a being that is eating the stars, and there are only 8 stars left in the sky, and once they're all gone, the universe ends. That's the basic, but there's a lot of other stuff going on in terms of, like, characters and our different goals and things. When setting a scene, consider just thinking of a cool-ass setting and using analogies to get the message across, I suppose. I just feel like it's a little cheap of me to be like, hey, have you seen this thing from this other thing? It's like that! Yo-Yo33, thanks for following.
Okay, that's what all schools do. They indoctrinate you. You pay your taxes in your state, city, village, town, and all they do is they indoctrinate your children. Always said, just go through the system, but have fun with the teachers, though. You know, have fun with them, especially the science teachers, who I just love so much. All the science teachers out there that are teaching our children complete fucking horse shit. I have to give it to you. You've regurgitated everything that you've learned, your entire life. And now you're feeding it to young minds. Lies.
Wouldn't it be nice to be in this fantasy world where you think that you're, like, in the top 5 percentile or whatever of the most enlightened, woke individuals on the planet, and you just have this, like, heavy as the crown fantasy where you're in your car making this dramatic video, like, "You fools, I tried to warn you, you absolute fools." And really, you're just, like, a bus driver who, you know, makes videos in their car and your wife hates you. Like, I get retreating into fantasy, but this is pretty ridiculous. The Ender 92 with 50 bits. I know it's a little off topic, but to visualize settings when I start DMing, I look at maps and try to picture myself in them, and not just look at the big picture, but look at the little things. Think about the smell, the temperature, the ambient sounds. Then think about what causes those things. That helped me, at least. Yeah, that's basically what I've asked Jake about this, and he says this pretty much the same thing, so. The thing you are using to talk to us is thanks to science. Yeah, these people are very silly and hypocritical.
Absolute fucking lies.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Logarth with 10 bits. Okay, you can talk crazy conspiracies. You can say the moon is fake. You can even maybe get away with saying the earth is flat because you're not really hurting anyone. But if you go after teachers, especially science teachers, now I have a problem. Big problem with him. Yeah, he's a jerk. Wow, Dr. Gamble with another 5 subs. Thank you, Dr. Gamble. Wow, it's amazing. Antipodian Squid with 100 bits. I hope his daughter realizes he's an idiot and listens to her teachers and comes out of her schooling an intelligent person that fights against conspiratorial thinking. Considering the wife thinks this guy's an idiot, it seems to me that the kid has a shot. I'd imagine the wife is like, don't listen to your dad, he's stupid, he believes a lot of crazy stuff.
While the science teacher is teaching her about...
Wow, Dr. Gamble, now firmly the gift sub-leader. Rad.
Planets and
nothing
the
funny
solar
about the
system.
tools of capitalism.
The ball that we supposedly live on, which we all know is a fucking lie, because there's absolutely no way gravity could hold in something.
Yes, it can. That's what gravity does. I don't understand these people's incredulity about gravity, right? Like, why would you think gravity's ridiculous? Like,
There's nothing funny about the tools.
You can see gravity every day working. Why do you think that this isn't real? And they say like, oh, it's buoyancy. No, it's not. That doesn't even make sense. Buoyancy requires gravity to fall in a specific direction. If buoyancy was the reason that this was falling, why would it fall down and not up? The reason that things go down if the buoyant force isn't enough to keep it floating is because of gravity. That's why it goes that way instead of that way, or that way, or that way. So even if you're trying to say it's buoyancy, that still requires gravity to function. I really, really don't understand what these people think is going on.
That's spinning at 1,000 miles per hour and projects.
It's not spinning at 1,000 miles per hour. Again, you're using linear velocity to describe a rotational movement. It's going to be inaccurate. The Earth is spinning at 1 rotation per day. It's not that fast relative to its size. In fact, it's quite slow.
Projecting through the universe at 63 million miles per hour, and the sun moving at this speed, and all this other bullshit that they've...
It's Cthulhu using his psychic mind powers.
taught you, when you were a child. There's no way water with that type of weight could stay on a ball.
It does, though. It does, because of gravity. And because gravity is relative to the mass of the objects that are in play. The Earth is huge! Huger than I think I've seen any flat earther conceptualize it as. I think that's a big part of their problem, is they're just unable to picture how huge the Earth is relative to us. The Earth exerts a very large gravitational force on everything on its surface, including water. Water sticks to the Earth because of gravity. There isn't really any disputing that. This has been shown time and time again. I think it's called the Cadavish experiment, something like that. You can do to show gravity, pulling two objects together. There are multiple experiments that you could do to show that gravity is a thing that exists. But these people refuse to do a single one because they know it would prove them wrong, and they'd have to snap out of this fantasy world they live in which they think that, oh, I'm not a guy who drives a van around for a living. I'm a guy who's a super genius who secretly knows better than all the scientists who've gone to college. It's stupid. It's these people are insecure about who they are, and instead of accepting who they are, or even bettering themselves in some way by seeking education even later in life, they smugly decide, actually, no, even though I drive a van for a living, which is what this guy does, there's nothing wrong with that, let me be clear. But clearly, he has a problem with it. Otherwise, why would he come up with this conspiracy to make himself the tippy top of human and intellectual excellence? It's absurd. The Cavendish experiment. Thank you, that's what it is. Thrash Mio with 20 bits. So slow that it takes 24 hours to do a full rotation. Who would have thought? Yep.
But we know so much about gravity.
Did I see Behind the Curve where they do the science experiment and it refutes their claims so they assume they did something wrong? Yeah.
Oh,
Depressing. That documentary is very depressing.
It went into the black hole. You know what I call the black hole here in the car? Right in between the seat and the dash. Right here. That's the black hole. Shit gets underneath there. You forget about it. You find it a year later. The whole thing is gravity. There's not a single scientist that can explain gravity.
There have been multiple scientists that have, notably Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein. Those are the two main ones. But there have been many other scientists who've done work on gravity.
Properly. So you're
Again, yeah, I agree. Belsthar says, define explain. Please, what do you mean by explain? Right?
Everyday Joe.
Because we can explain it. I mean, Newton had the formula for, like, figuring out, you know, gravitational pull. And of course, later on, Einstein, with relativity, sort of tried to explain, like, more so why it functions the way it does. What don't you understand specifically that you're saying it doesn't make sense?
Who's walking down the street can understand it. Because if you ask anybody about gravity around here, no one's going to be able to give you an answer because it's not a fucking...
Okay, just because the general person on the street doesn't know something doesn't mean it isn't true. Again, if I asked a random person on the street, do you know how to do calculus? If they don't know how to do it, it doesn't mean calculus isn't true. Or isn't functional. Sorry. Dr. Gamble with 20 bits. I can't properly understand it. It's too complex. Therefore, it's not real. It's narcissism. These people think they're so smart that if there's something they don't understand, it must not exist. It's ridiculous narcissism. Freaking out 99 with a bit. When these guys say, quote, nobody can explain gravity, it means that they're too proud to admit that they don't get it. Yep.
Scientist out there that can explain it. Ever.
Scientist explains gravity. It's probably a YouTube video we can take a look at. Astrophysicist explains gravity in 5 levels of difficulty from Wired.
Hi, I'm Jan 11. I'm an astrophysicist, and I've been asked to explain gravity.
I'm going to speed it up a little bit.
Increasing complexity. Gravity seems so familiar and so everyday, and yet it's this incredibly esoteric, abstract subject that has shaped the way we view the universe on the largest scales, has given us the strangest phenomenon in the universe like black holes, that has changed the way we look at the entirety of physics. It's really been a revolution because of gravity. Are you interested in science?
Yes.
Yes, you are?
Yes.
Do you know what gravity is?
It's something that,
There's
so
nothing
right
funny
now,
about the
we would be
tools of
floating if there
capitalism.
was.
Baja Blast. He probably means no one can explain it at the flat in the flat Earth context. I suppose. Dr. Gamble sits in home, looks at Google Home. Hey Google, explain gravity.
No gravity, but since
There's
there's
nothing
gravity, we're
funny about
sitting
the
right
tools
down
of
on these chairs.
capitalism.
That's pretty good. So gravity wants to attract us to the Earth, and the Earth to us.
Antipodian Squid with 100 bits. The Spawn, who turns 5 in September, understands the basics of gravity.
About the tools of
Yep.
capitalism.
But the Earth is so much bigger that even though we're actually pulling the Earth a little bit to us, you don't notice it so much. You know, the moon pulls on the Earth a little bit.
Just like with the ocean tides.
Exactly. Well, the moon is such a big body compared to anything else very nearby that it has the larger effect pulling the water of the Earth. But more than the moon, think about the sun pulling on the Earth. We orbit the whole sun just the way the Earth pulls on the moon and causes the moon to orbit us. All of those things are acting on you and me right now.
If gravity was too strong, would we be able to get up?
That's such a good question. No, we actually couldn't. The moon, gravity is weaker, can almost float between footsteps if you look at the astronauts on the moon.
Yeah.
On the Earth, it's harder because it's bigger. If you go to a bigger, heavier planet, it gets harder and harder. But there are stars that have died that are so dense that there's no way we could lift our arms, no way we could step or walk. The gravity is just way too strong. Do you know how tall you are?
I'm in the 4s,
In the 4s?
maybe 4'3".
People think that while you're sleeping, your body has a chance to stretch out and gravity isn't crunching you together, but when you're standing and walking or sitting, that gravity contracts your spine ever so slightly. So that in the morning,
I like this kid. She's like curious and interested. I like this kid much more than the idiot we were just listening to talk about how he thinks
There's
the Earth
nothing
is
funny
flat.
about the tools of capitalism.
Ask Compu. This is a smart nugget, indeed.
you might be a little bit taller than in the evening. See if it works for you.
Whoa.
Well, that was last night.
Yes.
That's pretty cool.
They say that astronauts in space, definitely their spine elongates. There were two twin astronauts, one who stayed here on Earth and the other who went to the International Space Station. He was there for a long time, and when he came back, he was actually taller than his twin brother. Yeah, and that was because gravity wasn't compressing him all the time, and he was floating freely in the International Space Station, and his spine just kind of elongated. After a while here on Earth, though, he'll readjust. He'll go back to the same size. Have you ever heard of how gravity was discovered? Isaac Newton would ponder, how does the Earth cause things to fall? There's a famous story that Isaac Newton was sitting under a tree and the apple fell from the tree and hit him on the head. And he had an epiphany and understood this law, this mathematical law for how that works. I don't actually think it's a true story,
Yeah.
but it's a good story. So Isaac Newton realized that even if you're heavier,
I'm glad she said that's not a true story. When gravity was explained to me as a kid by a teacher, they treated that story like it actually literally happened. And I understand to kids an allegory that's concrete helps them understand a concept and can get them interested. I understand that. But I think it's helpful if after you tell the story you say it's like that's not necessarily a true story, but it illustrates a point. Cotton Candy 903 with 10 bits. We better not inform that guy that he's been outsmarted by a 5-year-old. Dr. Gamble with some link or something. The more you know. Doon, 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 doon.
will fall at the same rate as something much lighter. That's the same. Once you hit the ground, if you're heavier, you'll hit the ground with much greater force, but you will hit the ground at the same time.
So if we both dropped down from a plane, we would both land at the same time, but you would land heavier?
Yep. So like a penny from the Empire State Building will fall at the same rate as a bowling ball.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Which wouldn't make sense if we were talking about buoyancy. I think under buoyancy, denser objects would end up moving quicker, right? Maybe I'm wrong.
Amazing. Want to try it?
Yeah.
A light object? See how light that is?
That's,
Very light.
yeah.
And a heavy object?
Well,
Oh my
buoyancy's
God.
still...
They look
I
the
don't
same,
know.
but this is much heavier, right? Okay, so try it. Just try holding your arms out front and a
Yeah?
little higher maybe,
Okay.
give them a chance to drop, and then drop them. Did they fall at the same time? Did they hit at the same time? So Isaac Newton, he was also the one who realized that that's the same force that keeps the moon in orbit around the Earth, and the Earth in orbit around the sun. And that's a huge leap. Here he is looking.
This works better in a vacuum. Yeah, they've done this where they go into a vacuum chamber, like the world's biggest vacuum chamber, where I think it's like a NASA place, or it's either at NASA or Boeing, I don't remember, where they test rockets and stuff, and it's like the world's biggest vacuum chamber, and they've done the Isaac Newton, feather and bowling ball test.
Looking at just things around him, and then looks at the stars, and has this really big realization that that's actually the same force. So, what have you learned today talking about gravity?
I've learned that the person that learned about the apple,
Newton.
he was learning about gravity just about what he saw on this planet. I also learned that if you drop one light thing and one heavy thing at the same height at the same time, they're both going to drop at the same time, but one's going to drop a little heavier than the other.
That's beautiful. I'm impressed. So, Maria, you're in high school?
Yeah, I'm a junior.
And are you studying any sciences in high school?
I'm taking physics right now.
Do you think of yourself as curious about science?
Well, there are like some things that interest me and others that bore me, so it like depends.
What interests you?
Well, like I'm a gymnast, so like in physics they talk about like force and stuff, and then I think of like how I use physics in like my own life.
What's
I
your
am
impression of
indeed
what
still
gravity
streaming.
is?
I think that if there's like no gravity, everyone would like float everywhere. It like pulls things down, and without it, like everything would just be like chaos.
So you're saying gravity pulls things down, yet we've launched things into space. Have you ever wondered how we do that?
But is it like a slingshot? Like if you pull something back enough, it'll like go in the opposite direction?
Well, that's true. We do use slingshot technology once things are out in the solar system. So, for instance, we use Jupiter and other planets so that when some of the spacecraft gets close, it'll slingshot around and it'll cause it to like speed up. But mostly around the Earth, gravity pulls things down. So when we want to send a rocket into space, when we want to go to the moon, when we want to send
You just noticed the
supplies
shirt
to
I'm wearing?
International
Thank
Space
you.
Station,
Thanks for saying
the
it's
trick
cute.
is to get something moving fast enough that it escapes the gravitational pull of the Earth. Have you heard the expression, what goes up must come down? It's actually not true. If you throw it fast enough, you can actually get something that doesn't come back down again. And that's basically how rocket launches work. You have to get the rocket for the Earth to go more than 11 kilometers a second. Think of how fast it is. Just one breath, and it's gone 11 kilometers. If you get it to go that fast, it's not going to come back down again. So you know the International Space Station, which is orbiting the Earth? That's going around the Earth at like 17,000 miles an hour. It has no engines anymore. The engines are turned off. So it's just there falling forever. So once it's out there, it's not coming back down as long as it's cruising like that.
And like, does the gravity pull it, or is it just like floating?
In a weird way, that is gravity pulling it. So have you ever had a yo-yo where you swing it around like this? The string is pulling it in at all times, but you've also given it this angular momentum. And as long as you give it the angular momentum, pulling it in actually keeps it in orbit. And so the Earth is pulling it in at all times, so that's why it doesn't just travel off in a straight line. It keeps coming back around. So it's funny, people think that the International Space Station is so far away that they're not feeling gravity. And that's not the case at all. They're absolutely feeling gravity. They're just cruising so fast that even though they're being pulled in, they never get pulled to the surface.
It's like that, the ride at the roller coasters where you like,
Yeah.
you go in and it spins super fast and you can't feel it spinning fast, but
Yeah,
like you're
you feel
pulled.
pinned to the back.
Yeah.
It's exactly like that. There's something called the equivalence principle where people realized, and especially Einstein, that if you were in outer space in a rocket ship and it was dark and painted and it was accelerating at exactly the right rate, you actually wouldn't know if you were sitting on the floor of a building around
Brittamer sang, thanks for continuing your subscription streak. 4 months. Nice.
the Earth, or if you were in a rocket ship that was accelerating.
It's crazy.
Have you ever had that experience where you're sitting in a train and the other one moves, and for a second you're not sure if you're the one moving?
Yeah.
So then your friend Marina comes cruising. It's
I'm going to
really
skip to
crazy.
the college student one.
So
It's like all these things.
it's like,
Yeah.
what are you studying in college?
I'm a physics major.
So from your perspective, how would you describe gravity?
I'm taught that it's a force. It's described by inverse law, but I also know that's a field. And there's a recent discovery with like gravitational waves, although I don't know like the specific details of about that.
So when you say it's an inverse square law,
Yeah.
that means that the closer you are,
Yeah.
the more strongly you feel the gravitational pull.
Yeah.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
There's very few things that are stronger when you're further apart.
Yeah.
So you can also think of a gravitational field, something that permeates all of space. Even though the Earth is 3 stories below us, it's not as though it's pulling at us from a distance, right?
Yeah.
We're actually interacting with the field at this point, and there's a real interaction right here at this point. And that's nice because people were worried that if things acted at a distance,
Yeah.
that the way the old-fashioned inverse square force law
Yeah.
describes it, that it was as spooky as like mind bending a spoon, that it was like telekinesis. You know, if you don't touch something, how do you affect it? And so the first step was to start to think of gravity as a field that permeates all of space. And it's weaker, very far from the Earth, and it's stronger, very close to the Earth. So one way to think of this field is as a field that's really describing a curved space-time that is everywhere. Forget the difficulty of the math. Just the intuition comes from 2 kind of simple observations. One was
A rubber band is a force that's stronger when it's further apart. Tension. Elastic tension. I don't know if that's...
what Einstein described as the happiest thought of his life. So right now, you might feel heavy in your chair. and we might feel heavy on the floor in our feet or standing in an elevator cab. And Einstein would have said, well, what does the chair have to do with it? Or the floor, or the elevator? Those aren't gravitational objects. And so he wanted to eliminate them. And one way to do the thought experiment is to imagine standing in an elevator that you can't see out of, a black box. And imagine the cable is cut, and you and the elevator begin to fall.
So in free fall?
You're in total free fall. Now, because things fall at the same rate,
Yeah.
including the elevator and you,
Yeah.
you can actually float in the elevator. If you just floated in the elevator, the two of you would drop. And you might not even know you're falling. You could take an apple and drop it in front of you, and it would float in front of you. You would actually experience weightlessness. It's called the equivalence principle. It was Einstein's happiest thought that what you're really doing when you're experiencing gravity isn't being heavy in your chair, it's falling weightlessly in the gravitational field. And that was the first step, to think of gravity as weightlessness and falling.
I know like a zero gravity experiences
Yeah.
are done with planes, I believe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can make somebody look like they're in the International Space Station by flying up in a plane and
Called
then
the
just
vomit
free falling.
comet.
The plane just drops out of the air.
For
And
obvious
while
reasons.
it's falling, they will float weightlessly, and there's been a lot of experiments about it, but you don't want it to end unhappily. So the plane has to scoop back up,
Yeah.
and then you see them become pinned to the floor of the plane.
Oh, okay.
Because then the plane is interrupting their fall. So that's the first thought, and then the next is, what is the shape that's traced? So if you were floating in empty space, really empty space,
Yeah.
and you had an apple, and you threw the apple, what shape do you think it would trace, the path?
Well, if I threw it straight, I would think it would go straight.
Yeah, it would just go
Yeah.
straight. But if you did that on the Earth, what would happen?
It would just go down.
Yeah, but it would chase a curve.
Oh,
It
yeah,
would chase an
yeah,
arc.
yeah.
Right? And the faster you throw it, the kind of longer the arc. So the second step to thinking about curved space-time is to say that when things fall freely around a body like the Earth, they trace curved paths. As
You get it. I'm not going to watch this whole video, but it's very interesting. There's a link if you'd like to check it out after the stream or whatever. I'm going to post that in this guy's video. I don't think he's going to like it, but, you know. Here is a video explaining gravity for you. He will not watch this, but it's always worth trying, eh?
We've dug down 8 miles. That's the most we've dug down.
Yeah.
That's it. We've dug down 8 fucking miles.
That's a really long distance, dude. Like, it's really, really hard to get equipment down there and then have it work.
The cores of the Earth, all the shit that's there in the books, every single thing that you see that's written about a planet is a fucking lie.
No? They're still determining these things based on experimentation, right? Just because you literally don't see something doesn't mean that you can't do experiments to test and check that your model is correct. You don't literally have to slice the Earth in half to understand how it works internally.
It's total bullshit. And there's not a single person that could tell me other than that.
So you've already made up your mind, and no new evidence will change your mind no matter what it is. Sounds not very scientific of you.
You can't prove to me anything other than all of the shit that we've learned in school is a fucking lie. Lies! Lies! Everything in science.
There's nothing funny about the tools. of
Mathematics,
capitalism.
well, those are just numbers that are made up.
How does only digging 8 miles disprove the Earth being round? I don't know. He's just trying to do a general science is BS argument right now.
You know? Yes, we need them to figure things out. Of course. How to build a car. How to get the measurements of this and that. Yes, okay.
Those are the two science things he can think of. Building cars, measuring things. The two sciences.
But everything that we've learned in science is nothing but a
There's
fucking
nothing
lie.
funny about the tools of
Because every
capitalism.
Antipodian Squid with 10 bits. Also, it's not like we've drilled through the other side and gotten air. It's not like we've drilled through the other side and gotten air. Yeah, we haven't. We've only drilled 8 miles down, but you don't need to in order to know what the Earth is like internally. Random guy 2324 real. So are we a part of this conspiracy? Are you a crisis actor? Am I? I guess so.
Scientist out there is nothing but somebody who speculates.
Projection much? No, science involves testing and peer review and years of study. Things that you don't do. All you do, and all I do for that matter, is speculate and talk about things like idiots on the internet. And both of us are prone to make mistakes, like the mistake I made earlier in this stream. You are also prone to making mistakes. The difference being that when I make mistakes, I can go, yep, I effed up. That was a stupid thing for me to say. The difference being, you instead say, no, I'm always right. I'm in the 95th percentile. I'm a genius. Very stupid. That's the mistake.
Shit.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capital.
Dr. Gamble with 10 bits.
That's a shame.
Sorry you feel this way,
really-
sir. It must truly suck to live in a world delusional where everyone is, but you as an idiot. Pizza is my dad. He made an argument that math can't have proofs. That's impressive.
It really is. You know, because when you become a flat earther, oh no, did I say flat earth? Yes. Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, I know the earth is flat.
No, you believe the earth is flat.
I know we're motionless. I know we're not.
No, we're in motion.
Spinning. I know we're not a planet. How do I
Yeah, I said insensitive, dumb bullshit, and Baja blasted me, rightfully so.
know all of this? Because of perspective.
In case anyone wasn't here for that.
Because I've become one of the many smartest people in the entire world.
Oh god, he just outright said it. He outright said he thinks he's one of the smartest people on the planet. No, you are not.
That have figured this out. When it's
Logarth says, I get the feeling this guy is super racist too. Like, this is kind of thinking that is a few steps away from eugenics and race weighting. Yep.
scientists
One of the smartest people in the world. That's why... Nope, not gonna go there. You're not one of the smartest people in the world, guy. You're just not.
500 years to figure this out. We figured it out in less than, I don't know, 10 years. I don't know who's the oldest flat earther out there. I have no idea. But how did you figure all of this out? Well, we just looked at everything that's been put out there for us all of our lives, which is nothing but nonsense. Garbage. Indoctrination. The virus is nothing but a big scam. Our state.
Let's check. U.S. deaths from COVID. I should just bookmark this. I look at it so often. We're up to 178,000 deaths. USA. USA. We're killing it. Literally.
State senators, politicians, are nothing but bullshit. They always have been. It's like
There's
a
nothing
football
funny
game,
about the
basketball
tools of
game,
capitalism.
baseball game.
You are a sad, sad little man. You
When
have
pay
my
somebody
pity.
A high absorbent amount of money.
Funny.
$100 million, $200 million to run around in a field. Question marks should pop up when you can see that person really doesn't have much talent. And that goes with Hollywood and many other things. Everything.
But did he just say that, like, sports stars don't have talent? Does he think he's also apex, like, competitor in sports and everyone else is worse than him?
See, when you become a flat earther and you understand everything, and that's what I've been saying, you see right through this, and you want to wake these people up that are
There's nothing funny about
just
the
so
tools of
stupid.
capitalism.
They're just, it's now, I mean, it really, it's tough for flat earthers now, because now we really do see.
It's tough for you because you're holding on to a worldview that is demonstrably false.
I mean, you know, it's one thing before this lie.
I'm going to speed this up.
But it's another thing now that we see it right in front of our eyes. You know, the power of the media and the power of everything that these people watch. And they obviously live by it. You know, I mean, they live by it. Could you imagine somebody telling somebody here 6 months ago you're going to be wearing a mask for the rest of your life?
It's probably not going to be for the rest of your life. Unless you catch it and die, I suppose. I'd imagine we'll probably get a vaccine at some point, but even if we don't, at a certain point, it would probably go through enough of the population that the curve would drop. Even in places like the U.S., where, like, people are just not taking it seriously, and there's conspiracy weirdos like this who are going out and endangering others. At a certain point, it would just go through the entirety of the population, and the people who are going to die would die tragically and preventively, but nonetheless it would be the case, and people would then have antibodies, or at least, unless it mutated, and then it went through the population again, and it also depends on if you can catch it more than once, which I've heard there's some evidence of. I don't know. But viruses don't care about what conspiracies you believe in. It's just a virus.
Because there's not a single politician now that'll come out and tell you, you know what? Masks off. We've lifted the ban. I don't think they'll ever say it at this point.
What? Every state doesn't even have a mask mandate. What are you talking about?
Because they're going to come out with a second wave. They're going to come out with a third wave.
Not if you put the mask on, you idiot. Wear it.
It's endless. Because they can see how well it's worked. It's worked so fucking well.
There's nothing funny about
to a point where you can't even... Well, I'm not saying you. I'm saying the sheeple. The sleepers.
Sheeple. Sheeple should be on the bingo card.
Can't even get into their own car without a mask. A mask in your own car.
I mean, if you're getting out of your car, or if you're like at a drive-thru and you're going to interact with people, you should put a mask on. Or if you're about to get out of your car, yeah, you should wear a mask. But like if you're in your car, either alone or with people that you live with, then no, you don't need to be wearing a mask.
There's nothing funny about
capitalism.
We're also screwed because there are so many people like this. I know, it's scary.
Speak to that person. I want to go back in time, and I want to speak to that person. And I want to tell them, do you realize you're going to be sitting in your own car with a mask on, paranoid about some fucking virus you don't know anything about, because you don't know how viruses are contracted.
Okay, again, these are things you could Google. Like, just because you don't understand it, again, doesn't mean viruses are fake. Antipodian squid. That was a terrible sentence. I'm partway through a migraine. I'm sorry. Paper on confirmed reinfection. Oh, yeah. There was a paper on some reinfection, but it was asymptomatic or something, but they were still a carrier.
You don't realize that they have to be injected inside of you in order for you to get it.
No. You don't need to have something injected into you in order to get a virus. Where did you get that piece of misinformation? Uh-oh, I got a rhinovirus. I shouldn't have let that dude stick me with a needle last week. Ridiculous.
And if you were so paranoid about this, why didn't you do anything about the flu? You get it every year. And
there's nothing funny.
You get a flu shot if you're worried about the flu every year. And the flu has a much lower death rate than COVID. It also has... The issue with COVID and why it's so dangerous, in part, is due to it takes like 2 weeks from the time that you get it to the time that you start being symptomatic. So for like 2 weeks, you're going around and spreading it to tons of other people. That's what makes it an issue. If you catch the flu, you're going to start showing symptoms much sooner. And everyone, when you get sick... unless you have a job where you really have to go to work and they don't let you take sick days or some stupid BS, you're gonna be in your house away from people if you catch the flu, because you know you're sick. But with coronavirus, at least COVID-19, you're probably going to be out spreading it for a longer period of time because it takes longer for you to be symptomatic.
It gets worse and worse.
Yeah, the flu kills like 50 to 60,000 people a year. We're almost at 4 times that for COVID. And it hasn't even been a year.
Each year, they come up with a new injection for it.
Yeah, it's called a flu shot. It's because the strain of flu is different every year.
But yet nobody sees this. They just run around, happy. You know, actually, I'm going to refer to Men in Black 1. You know, people are paranoid. But they're happy, running around, getting on with their lives. We're not. Us flat earthers know this is all bullshit. We understand that the virus is fake. We understand 9/11 was bullshit. We understand Sandy Hook is bullshit. We understand all of this nonsense.
When I ask for sources, I'm not usually asking for, like, a Tommy Lee Jones Will Smith movie. That's not usually a citation I'm looking for.
Pumping out. And it's getting worse. It really is. I mean, you know what's happening in the last 2 years? It shouldn't have happened for 20 years. So they're upping it. Whether it's because of us or not, I have no idea. I would say it has a strong hold on it, yes.
Imagine have such delusions of grandeur that you think that a global pandemic has something to do with you. And I don't mean, like, something to do with you in the sense that, like, oh, you're part of the global population, you have a chance of getting it. I mean thinking that not only is COVID fake, but believing that it has been faked because of you and people like you who are getting too close to the truth.
About the tools of capitalism.
The delusions are just bananas. I hope this guy's wife leaves him because, like, this guy's, like, a bad week away from stabbing his wife because he thinks she's in on, like, the secret cabal.
There's nothing funny about
Logarth with a bit. It's actually really fascinating how the World Health Organization works to determine which dominant strain of the flu, A and B, will hit each part of the world, and it works to produce the right vaccine for the right strain. Sometimes they miss. Most of the time it works really well. Thank you. I appreciate that. Freaking Out 99 with 5 bits. Viruses mutate hella fast and sometimes unpredictably. Don't understand why they mutate so much and so fast, but it explains why there are always new vaccines. And then Dr. Gamble says, people are paranoid. Understatement of the entire vid. What's this guy's name? His YouTube name is just C space C.
But, you know, it's coming out. It's coming out soon. They went all the way this time. They had to, because of the election. That's coming up, which is more bullshit. You know, who cares? None of these politicians do anything in office to begin with anyway. All right?
At least he's not voting.
It's a football game, baseball game, soccer game. It's all there to distract you. People will ask to distract you.
I gotta take the arm guards off to eat. Sorry, folks.
The truth of what you've been lied to all of your life. All of your fucking life. You've been told since you were a child, not from your parents, but from a figure that you thought was an authoritative figure, that you live on a planet, that you live on a ball.
You do.
Spinning in space.
You do.
You've been shown diagrams of this. You've been shown diagrams of layers of the Earth.
Yep.
Which a scientist can't explain how we actually know this.
Really? Do I have to Google this now because you're such an idiot that you can't do it for yourself? How do we know what the interior of the Earth is like? Most of what we know about the interior of the Earth comes from studies of seismic waves from earthquakes. These waves contain vital information about the internal structure of the Earth. As seismic waves pass through the Earth, they are refracted or bent like rays of light, bent when they pass through a glass prism. So based on how seismic waves work, they can figure out the density and composition of different layers of the Earth. Very simple to Google that. Don't know why people like this don't know how to Google stuff.
You've been...
Antipodian Squid with 50 bits. I know this guy doesn't know, but in case anyone else doesn't, an interesting tidbit about the flu shot. The yearly flu shot is a global effort. What you guys have in your season gives us an idea of what we will have in our season, which helps in the prediction of our vaccines. And then what strains we have impacts the predictions for your vaccine productions. The yearly flu vaccine process is really fascinating. Meanwhile, in the background. People work for a universal vaccine. Yeah.
Shown all of this when you were a kid. And it's been reiterated throughout the years. Hence the globe in front of you. All of your, well, not your life, but most of your jail sentence in school, your indoctrination. You've been told this. They do this for a reason. To control everybody here. And look how well it's worked. Case in point, your face mask. You're controlled. So when you look around and you see these people walking around with a face mask by themselves, on a sidewalk, outside, that's how well the control is taken. And it's a shame.
Thank you, Pandor505050 for following.
Nod your head if you see somebody not wearing a face mask outside right now. You know, forget about it. I mean, it's unbelievable how well it's worked. But I should have realized it at this point. I understand that flat earthers are the smartest people in the world, and we're beyond all of this nonsense.
Dr. Gamble with 100 bits. Achievement unlocked. Neurotic, paranoid, schizophrenic.
I want to get into something else right now, but it's not something I can do. This is on a totally different level at this point with the plausible possibility of flat Earth and beyond.
This guy's delusional.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to get into that right now. All right. I thank you for subbing. I thank you for viewing my videos and letting me be a part of your life.
What a weirdo.